May I please request Mr. Kanu Gohain, who's going to be the moderator for this session, to come up on stage. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, everybody. So now, this is the last session of the day. Here we have two panelists, Capt. Uday Gelli, CEO of Heligo, and Captain Sanjay Power, Senior VP of Global Vectra. The subject in this session is helicopter operations. Helicopter operations, you all know in India, is a part of the general aviation. What is the status today, and what needs to revitalize the civil helicopter industry in this country will be discussed. The two speakers, one of them will be speaking on offshore operations. The other gentleman will be speaking on onshore applications. In India today, it is a fact that the civil helicopter fleet, which grew in double digits during 2004 to 2011, in the subsequent years had recorded negative growth. Besides the reduced growth of the fleet, commercial helicopter operators often get frustrated over phenomenal delays in addressing various operation, fiscal, security, and other issues, which has been already elaborated in the previous sessions. The mounting cost of operation is the primary cause for the decline. We have discussed about these things in the earlier sessions. High cost of ATF, high customs duty for import of helicopter and spares, and most important, which has not been stated in the earlier sessions, is application of tariff not relevant to helicopter operations. These all add up to the cost of operation. And lately, there has been a recent issue of introducing mandatory ground handling services at some airports, which they have contracted to a third party. This will also add up to the helicopter operations cost. Interestingly, many of you must have been familiar with, even in heli area operations, particularly in remote areas, we have talked about remote area connectivity, where helicopters fly under VFR, Visual Flight Rules. They are required to pay RNFC, route navigation charges, even though radio navigation services cannot be availed in the hills. These are all the things which are stark reality in our country. What does these chartered companies do? They pass on this increased expenditure to the clients, leading to losing their clients. There have been cases where some state governments owning helipads and also private parties who own helipads, they started levying landing charges, though they are not licensed, neither are under the control of the regulator. These are the handicaps. I'm stressing on these handicaps, many of these which you all are familiar with, just to bring back the ground realities in helicopter operation faced by the operators. As per the statistics, there are 64 helicopter operators on the NSOP list, with 18 belonging to private category, about 16 government and PSUs. Now, the role of helicopter in our country has not been fully utilized. The versatility of its operation has never been brought into application. We hear about helicopters being used for corporate travel. Other applications, as was witnessed in the recent Uttarakhand disaster relief operations, cannot be ignored. where many of the civil helicopter operators had played a very leading role and which has been acknowledged by the government. Only a small percentage of total helicopter operations are devoted to other application roles such as casualty evacuations, electronic news gathering, as we have seen it in other states abroad, airborne law enforcement, hotline washing to support efficiency in electric power transmissions. I understand today there has been a tender issued by the electric corporations for this purpose, where the civil helicopter operators will have an opportunity to make the application of their helicopters, under slug load transportation, etc. There are some isolated cases. We remember at IIT Delhi when they wanted to put up that big heavy thing, they brought in the defense heavy lift helicopters to bring up the tower and plant it on top. Most of the helicopter operators are located either at Mumbai, with its subsidiary airfield at Juhu, and the rest are at Delhi. About 60% of that. The rest are located across the country. There is an urgent need for revitalizing the civil helicopter industry in this country, and the concerned authorities, whether it be the DGCA or the ministry, has to play a very more proactive role. Some of these issues are why the helicopter industry is suffering is because of lack of optimal utilization of the helicopters. The operating cost of helicopter flights is quite high than for a fixed wing. And due to its very nature of operation, which are over short geographical distances, where the average flying time for each leg does not exceed an hour. More so, flying over helicopter is restricted from sunrise to sunset and also restricted during bad weather conditions. Hence, it is expensive to operate and cannot compete with relative cheapness against other modes of transportation. The optimum utilization of helicopter lies in exploiting the ability of the machine to land and take off from small helipads. Here also, in ground reality, though the helicopters are permitted to land and take off from small helipads on temporary basis, permission has to be obtained from the landowner and the district authorities. In practice, many of you must have experienced this requirement is proving to be restrictive as inordinate delays. Again, the catchword is delays is experienced and inability to obtain the required permission is experienced. More so, the helicopter operators, neither their clients have any representatives in such areas, adds up to their handicap. The average utilization of a helicopter in general aviation is less than 25 hours. The other deficiency we have today for the growth of helicopter is the lack of infrastructure facilities at major airports, included those where they are based. We do not have still today proper heliports. The major infrastructure for establishing the heliports with air traffic control services and safety services, ground handling, refueling, maintenance facilities, and more importantly, availability of weather data. We remember during our time, the remote northeast of this part in Teju, where, believe it or not, the river flowing alongside washed up the helipad. So, heliports, the concept of heliport has not yet come into the scene here in India, even though there had been some ideas floated, some paperwork moved for heliports somewhere near Delhi in Rohini. while India could be guided by ICAO, SARPS, and FAA, ESA advisories on heliport design, the rules need to cater to Indian conditions and systems that presently exist. We remember we had the first rooftop helipad in Mumbai on SR building, and it took nearly 2 years to get the approvals to satisfy the people concerned, to convince the regulators then, where I was a party also, to get that operational authorization. Subsequently, there had been more helipads. I understand as I came down to this hotel from the airport, I saw some tall buildings where they have some disc-like constructions on top, and I'm told that they are rooftop helipads because the state governments are encouraging rooftop helipads at tall buildings. But by constructing a rooftop helipad doesn't complete the job. Have they been made operational? That's the biggest question where we have to take the case forward. Escalating cost of operation, we have already heard others talking of ATF, custom duty, etc., etc. So there has to be some action from the governmental side to ensure that for helicopter operations, which is a much needed operation for serving the community, that there should be some concessions or some relief in the matter of this helicopter operations. As I mentioned, ground handling charges recently introduced will further be making things complicated. Lastly, I'll touch upon the regulatory constraints adopted by the authorities is their attitude in enforcing civil helicopters to operate under rules made for fixed wing. It's a real irony that the helicopter operation and the fixed wing operations, as you all must be knowing, general aviation operators using helicopters, are two different sorts of operation, but still there is a way to move forward on this. To revitalize the civil helicopter operations in the country, as was envisaged in the strategic plan of the government in the Ministry of Civil Aviation, I do not know how much it has taken off, but it includes increasing the fleet of the helicopters in the country by including about 300 more helicopters by 2015. As someone had earlier mentioned, we have already in 2015. We do not know when this will happen. To establish one helipad at every 100 kilometers of the national highways and rooftop helipads at 5-star hotels and hospitals with more than 500 wards. This also has remained on paper until and unless a positive action is taken to enforce through regulations for such users of helipads and heliports. We do not think things will move forward as is expected. Then there was another recommendation in which to establish heliports in the 4 regions of the country under PPP model. And now Airports Authority of India has embarked on a plan of making greenfield airports to the in the regional and remote areas. But while constructing these airports, they should adopt helicopter operation needs also. They should adapt to the India design of these greenfield airports. Some states do have helipads and heliports, as has been done in Andhra Pradesh, Arunachal, Kerala, Gujarat, and Uttarakhand. These heliports not only will be used for connectivity purposes to the remote areas where airstrips are not available, but in India, we can also have these helicopters for heli-tourism and helicopter medical evacuation, which will be a service to the community. So it is the BOA, Business Aviation Organization, which Mr. Rohit Kapoor is heading. He has made some efforts in impressing upon the authorities to move forward But as has been stated in the earlier sessions, results have to be seen now. And we cannot just have these plans on paper. With these words, I would invite first Captain Uday Gelli to speak on offshore operations. The idea of my speaking here, and I'll request the speakers also to bring out the ground realities. People sitting in Delhi, in the ministries or in the DGCA, which I had been a part of it earlier, would not understand the ground realities until and unless they actually come to the field and experience these difficulties themselves. So, with these words, Captain Uday Gelli, you would like to present your speech.
It's nice to see still many people sitting back here at this time of the evening. So you must be really patient, and thank you for being here at this time of the day. So Mr. Kanu Gohain has spoken about these helicopters, and he's spoken in detail. So I think I can leave half my speech and I'll try and make it as short as possible. Secondly, when Rohit asked me to speak at this conference, I was a bit pleasantly surprised because this was supposed to be Business Aircraft Owners Association. And here we are coming and talking on the helicopters. But helicopters do form part of the general aviation industry as such. So my topic was offshore. Like I said, we have spoken about the challenges, the obstacles, and whatever we have. I come here to say that what is there for future offshore operations. So I'll talk to you a little bit on that, but offshore in India is primarily carried out for oil and gas exploration. There are just 2-3 sectors where helicopters can be used in the offshore, but we are restricting here primarily for to support, to give air logistics to oil and gas industry. We do not carry out search and rescue. Otherwise, search and rescue also is done by civil helicopters, but in India it's done by either the Navy or the Coast Guard. The other one, which is used in some parts of the world, is the pilot transfer. That is the transfer of a captain of a ship who gets the ship into the harbor. So that kind of work is done. So primarily in India, it's offshore oil and gas. And if I had to talk to you about the opportunities, what is the growth, what is the likely scenario, I need to speak a little bit about the oil and gas industry. So I'll bring out a little bit of statistics of this oil and gas industry in the country. So we can see that oil has always been the driving force of economies in the world, and India is no exception. I think all of us are aware of that. What would be surprising is that the first commercial discovery of crude oil in India was made in 1889. That's almost about 125 years back at a place called Dig Boy. Now we don't know how this name Dig Boy came about. Like people jokingly say that when they started digging, it's only the boys who are digging, and somebody said, come on boys, keep digging, keep digging. And so that's not Dig Boy. But I honestly, I don't know how the name came about. So the ONGC, which is the largest producer of oil and gas in India, they started the activities way back in 1955. And in 1976, ONGC commenced production, that is officially the offshore oil and gas from Mumbai High. And you can see that ONGC by itself produced almost about little over 20 million metric tons of oil. And initially, the air logistics was supported by the Indian Air Force, and subsequently a large number of private operators from all over the world were operating. In mid-80s, late 70s and mid-80s, we had almost about 7 different operators from world over operating variety of helicopters here to support the ONGC. So just to give an idea, how much oil do we consume? It's interesting to note. I think all of you know that we are one of the largest importers of oil in the world, perhaps the third. Earlier it used to be USA, then Japan and China. Now USA has become a net exporter of oil. So you can see that humongous. In the last about 7-8 years, our consumption has gone up by about almost 50%. So we consume 222 million metric tons, and that's our India's requirement. And how much do we import? You can see that it's in values. It's just mind-boggling. I mean, if you had to put this zeros after the figures, it's humongous. We started in 2007, 2008. I just picked up the statistics from the Ministry of Petroleum website. It's 272,000 crores. So for those who are not aware of crores, it's 272 billion rupees. So it just adds up like that. And 2013, 2014, we have imported 864,000 crores. So that's almost about 36.5% of the total imports of the country. Now this is the total petroleum products. So this is the kind of figure that we are talking about. How much do we produce in terms of oil and gas? Just look at this. Last year we just produced 37.8 million metric tons and 35.4 billion cubic meters of gas. Barely it just meets the 20% of our national requirement. So we are talking about the pricing of, dropping of the prices of the oil in the international market. It was all built at about $120 a barrel. It's come down to $60 a barrel now. The opinion of the experts is that it won't just go down below this, but it may just go up to about $75 to $80 a barrel, which brings huge savings for the country, billions of dollars. But nevertheless, India will have to continue to produce the oil to meet its requirement. We are just producing 20% of the requirements. So we know where we have to go towards offshore oil and gas production. Just a few statistics. The offshore drilling rigs and wells in the Bombay High is west coast, and we have something on the east coast. Okay, this is by the company-wise. We have 39 rigs and 104 wells producing oil. Private and JV companies, 20 and 49. Exploratory and development drilling oil companies. The exploratory well is 70 and development wells 84. The figures I'm giving it is because these are the places where the helicopters are used to transport people and material. So you know the number of places the helicopters have to travel, so intensity of flying. So we have basin-wise on the east coast and the west coast, we have something like about 39 fields, including oil, just gas, oil and gas. And the west coast is 86. And ONGC and the private sector oil companies are continuously sort of looking around for the fields to look where to find oil. So there is something called the deep water drilling, where the depth of the sea is almost about 1,000 to 1,500 feet, and they go there and they keep drilling there to find oil. So how do the air logistics come in there? Today, as of today, we have approximately about 32 helicopters which are being used for the air logistics support, both in the west and the east coast. Today, of course, ONGC being the largest producer of the oil, also the largest user of the helicopters. They have, last year, as per the annual balance sheet, they have produced oil worth about 83,400 crore rupees. And since we talked about the safety standards, I must tell you here that ONGC has adopted the international standards, what is called an OGP, Oil and Gas Producers Association. So over the years, the oil companies are demanding very, very high standards. So the helicopters and the standards being used for offshore oil and gas in India is on par, if not exceeds certain levels of operations the world over. Offshore operations, so it just gives you the intensity of the movements. This is just based out of Juhu Airport in the last 6 months. There are 82 movements, and there are days when there are 100 movements. 50 helicopters landings, 50 helicopters coming back. So this is the kind of intensity that goes on there. In fact, when I checked with the Airport Authority of India person, he told me that with this kind of movement, Juhu is one of the busiest airports in the country. The 7th or 8th in terms of the number of movements. Passengers, approximately over 500 passengers carried per day. People are being taken to the offshore platforms, being brought back, more than a ton of cargo. These are the perishables that are being taken, or emergency requirement of any parts or tools. So this is just an idea to give you. So the idea is to tell you that the offshore operations will continue to grow because India is certainly in need of helicopters, in need of oil, and the people need to use helicopters to go offshore. The offshore platforms, just for example, in Mumbai High, they're about 80 to 120 miles. If a person has to be sent by boat, it takes him almost about 18 hours. And if he goes there, he's not in a position to actually perform any work for next 2 days. So traditionally, all over the world, the people are transported by helicopters. So it is my belief that the offshore sector will continue to grow. And there, along with the growth, there'll be challenges. But the helicopter companies have matured now to take on this task. And in the coming years, perhaps more and more operators could join in this race. But this is, I would say, that an area, and there is an opportunity for growth in India for the helicopters. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Gelli. Thank you, Captain Gelli, for giving the facts and figures of how important is the logistic support provided by the helicopters for offshore operations and the benefit to the nation and to its people. I now call upon Mr. Captain Sanjay Panwar, Senior VP of Global Vectra, who will give his inputs on onshore operation of the helicopters.
Good evening, gentlemen. In fact, Rohit sir didn't tell me I'll be the last speaker. Okay, I'll make it short then. Okay, gentlemen, we have heard Captain Gelli talk about the offshore operations, and now I'll cover the onshore side. Basically, I'll home on to the opportunities that we have in the onshore side to expand helicopter operations. We'll go. Okay, I'll just give you a small global view on the helicopters. There are 36,000 helicopters in the world today operating. India has 262, less than 1%. So I'm not comparing, I'm just telling that from the time I came to the civil sector, I was told that we are on the verge and we are about to take off, and helicopter industry is bound to move forward in leaps and bounds. But the fact, it didn't happen that way. In fact, I was in the DGCA and I have been planning the surveillance of the companies for the last 5 years, and it always disheartened me when I made the plan for the next year in December. I found 8 to 10 companies going down. And if I go by figures, in fact, we started off till 2011, 11-12, we had a steady increase in the helicopters coming into India, reaching a high of nearly 305, and today we stand at 262. So rather than growing, we actually declined over a period of time. And I'm just comparing that. Take a case of Brazil, a similar area to that of India. From 2008 to 2014, it has increased its helicopter fleet from nearly 1,200 to 2,400. And you see us down actually. So we're talking of growing opportunities and growing growth, but there must be something really serious that our helicopter industry has not grown the way we wanted it to grow. I'm not giving you figures as to how these helicopters are being used in India, but the fact is large part of it goes into charter business, less for the offshore, some private operators, and about 2% to the BSF. They have some 7 odd helicopters. But I would like to home on to business opportunities that we have where we can support and hope that we grow. As was brought out by Captain Gelli, offshore oil and gas is one area where helicopters will grow. Power sector, a very unexplored area. In fact, as brought out today, we had one tender, or the first tender for the power. Actually, I'll say one which really didn't work out, that I'll not count. But today we had the first tender for power sector. Why I'm wanting to bring out power sector as an important sector is that not only in the survey for laying of lines, for building of pylons, for surveillance of the wires, the washing of the wires, the live line maintenance, the use of helicopters in the power sector is phenomenal. And it is repetitive in nature. You finish with your surveillance, do the maintenance, and you're back to the starting of surveillance again. So there you have a big opportunity to really work. Emergency and medical services, law enforcement, everyone brought out electronic news gathering, disaster management, geophysical survey, aerial mapping, for resources, for hydraulic, for water, heli sports, and another important area, remote area connectivity and tourism. Why I'm bringing it out is that this is an unexplored area, and India has enough spots which are not connected. You can take the entire Himalayas, you can take the 7 states in the east, all need connectivity. Now I'll take them one by one. Offshore oil and gas, which I brought out. We have spoken 120 to 150 nautical miles. We are going today and doing the maintenance of oil gases, but there is a need to grow and go deeper into the sea, 300 to 500 nautical miles, get more helicopters, medium to heavy, and also to build platforms which can give refilling facilities to these helicopters which go deeper into the sea. And I don't want to give figures because these are just analysis, and this basis may go wrong, but there's enough potential for more heavier aircrafts to come and be part of the oil and natural gas. Power sector, India accounts for 125,000 circuit kilometers of line. In the next, by 2020, we are supposed to add 60,000 kilometers more. By next year, India will be the largest in terms of the power lines in the world. So you see the potential, how much you're going to really use helicopters if we really want to sustain and maintain the figures that the power grid wants us to maintain, that is the transmission system availability. They want it at 99.65%, which you really need a lot of hard work to maintain that. And in the next 5 to 7 years in the power sector, if I just draw a broad picture, 5 to 7 zones which the power grid has, they have just given the first tender for the north zone, only in the northern states. By the time I complete this surveillance, only the surveillance part, the second tender will be out to start the same work again. Because I'm supposed to complete this in 1 year. Now you take the zones, now you start with the maintenance. This is just the surveillance, finding the faults, then you get into the maintenance of these lines. I heard about HEMS and medical services for the Indian area right from the very beginning. Nothing has happened. You can give figures, 4 lakh hours flown in the USA. Every 90 seconds, aircraft takes off for EMS. 5 lakh people evacuated annually. A lot of lives saved. India has 2 helicopters, 0 deployment. We just don't think about the EMS or HEMS in a manner it should be thought that that's the way it will save lives. There are no policies. Policies, I say, the insurance covering, or in terms of financial support, there's nothing. It just doesn't happen. But if you look at it in a positive way, and if you're really going to use helicopters in the remote areas and also in the connected areas, you are bound to have a large deployment of helicopters in the coming years. Law enforcement, search and rescue, and disaster management. Law enforcement, nil helicopter utilized in India. There's nothing. If you talk of surveillance cameras, radar, special radio systems, loudspeaker, tear gas dispensers, searchlights, winches, all on helicopters trying to do a good job, 0. There's nothing. This is one area where we can grow. A lot of us talk about disaster management. We had Uttarakhand, we had Kutch. I really beg to differ. Nothing came as a disaster management cell which was trying to coordinate the services in Uttarakhand. It was the operators, 10 of them, who were stuck in the area, that they got together, made a plan, and saved people. So the government, not only has an aviation policy on the national level, but also the states need to have dedicated helicopters, need to have dedicated policies, so that we have growth in this area and we have optimum utilization. Kutch, I've seen enough deaths there. Not one helicopter came to rescue people. It was Air Force which was doing something from the Bhuj airfield. So this is where we have a large scope. Search and rescue, I have always seen trekking, mountaineering, anything which is happening in the hills, or after the casualty has taken place, then there is a frantic call. But nothing planned, support, nothing is done in this manner. Then you have everyone calling the Air Force, you have people calling the normal operators that we have so-and-so in a bad condition at so-and-so location. But these are events which are taking place. These are events which are happening in the hills. These are things which are being planned every year. Why can't we give dedicated support of helicopters to such events? Geophysical survey. India has started with geophysical survey. We have done quite a large amount of work on this. Initially, we were doing for only the Atomic and Mills Department. Then we started with the water survey. And now there are people coming who want to map the entire country for minerals. The list of minerals, I think yesterday when Mr. Modi was inaugurating some of the function, he has increased the list by another 31 precious metals or elements that they also should be included, and the entire country should be mapped. The people doing this is one area where we will have a large requirement of helicopters. It's a huge deployment of helicopters to map the entire country if it is to be done. Heli skiing, yes, we have 4 to 5 internationally acclaimed and wonderful locations that can be used. And if we don't go to the challenges, if these areas are really supported with helicopters, we have a good deployment opportunity and a large amount of heli skiing, trekking, these events can take place. The figures that I'm giving down below, that it is next 5 to 7 years, 15 helicopters, 20 helicopters, that I have also heard here. In fact, it's been a negative growth. It is just that this is what we can get. Now we have to see how to move forward. Remote area operations, why I'm saying is an important area for us, is some states like Arunachal, maybe some of the other eastern states, have chosen to come forward, seek the help of the government, and start remote area connectivity, have proper chartered flights from place A to place B, giving the people some solace. But you and me both know that right from J&K, throughout the Himalayas, all the 7 states, everyone needs connectivity. This can't be done with one state taking initiative. It can be an aviation policy at a national level which permits the states to use. And you can now see the amount of deployment that you can do in this 10 to 15 states or regions that we have. Tourism, India has very beautiful locations, nail connectivity. Helicopters can be part of this. Now I come to the challenges and way ahead. I think most of these challenges have been covered, but I'll just say lack of public use heliports. There's nothing. There are no heliports as far as we're concerned. Non-availability of terminals, parking space, lack of hangar space, maintenance facilities, limited availability of MROs, and increasing cost of maintenance. These are definite challenges. Dedicated helicopter corridors I've still given because we did make an effort for Bombay and Delhi. We have made some corridors. But the helicopter comes number 2. He's still roaming around the area just to get an entry into the airport. So that is not what we are looking for. Train manpower, yes, if there is an opportunity, we'll need manpower, and we have to look out because we may not have if we really increase the fleet as we are hoping to increase. High parking charges at airports, especially Mumbai and Delhi, from where helicopters, most of the helicopters operate. This does increase my cost of operations. Fuel prices have gone down, government has increased the taxes. So nothing comes down to the operator in terms of the lower costs of fuel. Import of helicopters, covered very well, tedious, time consuming, custom duty, very high. And the best, fixed wing tariffs are applied to helicopters. I think someone said this was the killer that helicopter industry does not need. MOCA and DGCA related, NSOP very difficult to obtain, a lot of restrictions. Too many agencies involved in giving permissions. We'll just take an example of Katra, Amarnath, or all this. Every year, everyone has to go through the same process of clearances, and we never get it on time. Hence, it is always on the run. You're trying to make it to meet to somehow start the operations. It is the same location. It is the same circuit every time we are doing, but the permission will never come. It will take 6 months. You're running from pillar to post every year. Restrictive policies like DGCA permission required for servicing even at airports involves unnecessary movement of DGCA and our personnel. I've seen locations like say Katra, I have my B3 and Himalayan has the B3, but both have to take permission of 100 hours separately. It's amazing. It's the same aircraft. Once you're given permission, it should be okay for everyone to use. Foreign pilots, they come on FATA. It takes 2 to 3 months to get the FATA cleared, and after that, the FATA is valid for 3 months. If you have any delay, the pilot cannot be used after doing the whole work. Okay, when we come to the way ahead, need for clearing the regulatory bottlenecks, we've been saying, but we really need to do something. Import duty of helicopters and spares to be reviewed. Impetus to new ventures like aerial survey, line laying, and maintenance. I can go further and say that at certain new ventures, the government should sponsor. And they should give this impetus to the industry to grow. We have one policy for the entire country. You will go and get so many permissions before you actually can do an operation. I wish we can divide the country. I know there are sensitive areas, less sensitive areas, good areas. Just divide it and make the clearances separate for the separate areas. Which are not sensitive, don't make me go around all types of clearances before I land at a place A. But in sensitive areas, yes, if it is required, it can be done. State governments, this has been a point I have been trying my best, and even from the DGCA point of view, that this helipad making it every nook and corner in every field should not be there. The state government should make helipads in every district, give me the grid references, make a proper right up to the national level. I will not be needing clearances. I can go to the district helipad which is approved. And I don't have to go to the landowner, I don't have to go to the SP, I don't have to go to the DM, I don't have to really get into this system because this is approved helipad of the state. Okay, this was covered, create helipads along the highway and deploy HEMS, okay fine. DGCA to take up case with state governments to provide ATF refueler fire tenders, especially in the areas where a private operator, small operator cannot actually go. Defense services, they are there in the remote areas, and an operator is willing to pay if he goes into really areas where he can get some assistance. There should be a national policy to permit. You charge me for that. But you make me move 1 fuel or 2 fuel barrels from Pathankot or from Delhi to somewhere in, it's not done. You can tell the forces they may charge me for the transportation or whatever extra cost, but let it be a policy. I will utilize my helicopters more. Similarly, hydropower projects in very remote areas, nothing connected, no resources available. These are places, make it compulsory. These are big projects. Make it compulsory that helicopter support will be there. These are in remote areas, and you only get a call, frantic call in the night if someone is in distress. Create a disaster management cell in the DGCA, and they should move in. I think there should have been an ATC or Air Force or something established even in Uttarakhand, because the kind of flying, the way we were flying, it was totally disorganized. The aim was to save people, but it was not safe. I just wish there can be a way, the tendering process in various contracts like Katra, Amarnath, etc., or any contracts where L1 has to win it, we're actually killing the industry. In 12 years back, Katra ticket costed 5,700 rupees. It has come down to 700 rupees. Till when can we bid? Till where can we actually cut the bottom line? So there has to be something, I don't know. I just wish there has to be some process of to be done. The rest are small points. I just take it that these have to be met in a regulation. Regulations have to be amended, and we have a way forward. We have a lot of areas for deployment, and we can actually grow. As I've been hearing for the last 5 to 7 years, that helicopter industry is on the verge of takeoff. It's going to grow. Gentlemen, I close here, and let's hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Sanjay, for making a beautiful presentation, elaborating the applications of an helicopter, how it can grow, the difficulties that you faced on the ground, and the way forward. I'm sure Mr. Rohit from Business Aviation Association will take it forward to the concerned authorities to resolve the various issues which are faced at the ground level.
May I now request Mr. Rohit Kapoor to facilitate the eminent panel that we have here on.
You get in an expat here, you pay him in dollars, and within 3 months, if the FATA is not extended, or if there is an issue regarding his license, and if it lies in the DGCA, he's grounded. I have had a pilot who was grounded for 6 months. We kept paying him in dollars. And after the 6th month, I had to apologize to him and send him back, because the file was pending on a case in DGCA. And they're mindless of the cost. And which I have already covered in the mornings. So I will not go any further. Rohit, thank you very much for this. And thanks again for bringing this helicopters faction also into your meeting.
One last question. Yeah.
People have said about Northeast operation. What is holding up helicopter operation in Northeast? Because I know for sure Northeast Council has got money for aviation there. Are the operators not approaching them? Northeast Council has got tremendous money for aviation, development aviation in all the 7 sister states. Pavanhans is operating some. I think they're restricting it to public sector undertakings. Okay. Again, not a level playing field. Okay, sir.
Helicopters are there, and you're clubbed with Pavanhans, and most of the time these contracts are given to Pavanhans, and that's a huge problem.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And no further questions, I suppose. And so, as Mr. Rohit says, that's the end of this session. Thank you very much for your patience in listening to us.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for all the panel members who have shared all the inspiring thoughts throughout the day today. I would like to invite Mr. Rohit Kapoor one more time to address our dignitaries with his concluding remarks. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I think it's been a fairly long day. I'm actually glad to see that there's still some people here. All right, it's not bad. You know, helicopter industry, I feel your pain right here. I've been a helicopter pilot myself, so I know exactly what you're saying. it's unfortunate. Everything which has been brought out is something that I've been hearing, God knows for how many years. Given the fact and the opportunities, probably this industry should have been today. And what we find is from 300, we've gone down to about 260. That's a shame. So somebody needs to wake up somewhere and start looking at. I think this is one industry which can grow very rapidly in this country. There is such a need, and I see no reason why we are restricted here. Just a point on Pawan Hans has came out in the end. I think Pawan Hans to the helicopter industry is what Air India to the airline industry is, you know. So we need to figure that part out. And, you know, so everybody calls everybody a stepchild. We call ourselves general aviation the stepchild of commercial aviation, and the helicopter industry is the stepchild of general aviation. So that's where it stands. Okay, not to take too much of time. I think it's a very, very invigorating session and day. A lot of issues came out. And the aim here was to actually exchange some ideas and views and see where we have the potential to go. And you know, as most of us have seen today, the potential is great. Obviously, there are shackles, there are chains which need to be released. The good part is, and I think we can only look at the good part, is that I think the people in charge seem to notice now. All right, they have kind of understood that, and I think the JS was decent enough to admit it, that in the past they have ignored it, and now they understand, you know, there's something that needs to be rectified, and they will rectify it. We take that, you know, at face value. Obviously, there's a lot which is beyond the Ministry of Civil Aviation that needs to be put into place. While I'm sure, you know, rules, regulations will be sorted out fairly quickly, we are worried about, you know, issues of infrastructure. We are worried about issues of access, taxation policies. These need to, I think there needs to be a task force at a very high level to look at this.